Aby was hesitant, but she agreed. She turned AB back into a boy, and her husband embraced him, apologizing for everything. But when he turned to Amanda, his expression was cold. "You're just as guilty as your mother," he said. "You let this happen. I don't want to see you again." Amanda's heart shattered. She knew she had lost everything: her husband, her home, and her place in the village. Her mother was taken away by the police for her crime, and in a strange twist, she was turned into a goat as well. As for AB and his father, they found peace together. They began a new chapter in their lives, leaving the darkness of the past behind. Amanda, however, disappeared from the village, and no one ever saw her again. And so, AB and his father lived on, stronger and happier than ever before.
Reby was a kind-hearted boy with a gentle soul, but his life had always been difficult. His mother, a woman of warm smiles and kind words, had disappeared one day without a trace, and no one knew why. She had left Reby with his father, a quiet man who spent most of his time working and seemed lost in his own thoughts. Then Amanda came into their lives. Amanda never smiled. Not on the day she married Reby's father. Not on the day she moved into the house. Not even when neighbors came to welcome her with gifts and greetings. Her face was always set in a cold, hard expression. And from the very start, she didn't seem to like Reby. Reby tried his best to please Amanda. He would fetch water, sweep the floor, and even help her prepare meals. But nothing he did was ever good enough. If he washed the plates, Amanda would say they weren't clean. If he swept the floor, she would claim it wasn't done properly. If he spoke to her, she would snap at him. And when Reby's father was at work, Amanda's temper grew worse. Reby bore it all with silence. He missed his mother, but he never spoke of her. He missed his father's comforting words, but his father was always too tired or distracted to notice how unhappy he was. So Reby kept his pain inside and hoped that one day Amanda would warm up to him. But Amanda never did. In fact, her hatred for Reby seemed to grow every day. She would shout at him over the smallest mistakes. If he accidentally spilled water, she would make him mop the entire house. If he broke a plate, she would refuse to give him dinner. And when she was especially angry, she would hit him. Reby learned to keep his head down to avoid her as much as possible, but it was never enough. One bright afternoon, Reby was in the backyard. He loved being outdoors, away from Amanda's harsh gaze. The yard was his little heaven, a place where he would lose himself in daydreams. He would imagine his mother coming back to take him away. He would dream of his father smiling at him again. He would pretend he was a brave warrior from the stories his mother used to tell. In those moments, he felt free, but his freedom never lasted long. That day, Amanda's voice cut through his thoughts like a blade. "Reby," she shouted. "What have you done now?" Reby froze. He had done nothing wrong. He was sure of it, but he knew better than to argue. He put down the stick he was playing with and ran inside. Amanda stood in the middle of the room, her face twisted in anger. "I am tired of you making my life miserable," she screamed. "No matter what I do, you are always in the way." Reby opened his mouth to protest, but Amanda's hand came down hard on his arm. "Don't talk back to me. Just get out of my sight." Reby scrambled back outside, his arm stinging from the slap. He didn't cry. He never cried anymore. Instead, he sat on a small patch of grass at the edge of the yard and stared at the sky. He wondered why Amanda hated him so much. He wondered why his father never defended him. He wondered if he would ever feel safe or happy again. That evening, Amanda's mother came to visit. Amanda's mother was known throughout the village for being strange. Some whispered that she practiced witchcraft, though no one dared to say it to her face. She was a tall, stern woman with piercing eyes that seemed to see into people's souls. Even Amanda seemed nervous around her mother. As they sat together, Amanda poured out her frustrations. "Mama, this boy is ruining my life," she said, her voice trembling with anger. "Every time I look at him, I feel sick. He reminds me of everything wrong in this house. I can't have a child of my own, and I think it's because of him. I'm sure he's the reason I'm barren." Her mother's sharp eyes darkened. "You are telling me that this boy, this Reby, is causing your troubles?" she asked. Amanda nodded, tears streaming down her face. "He's always underfoot, always doing things to make me upset. I can't take it anymore. Amanda's mother rose from her seat. Bring the boy here, she said coldly. Amanda hesitated. Mama, maybe we should wait. Bring him, her mother snapped, her voice like thunder. Amanda quickly called for Abby. Abby was in the backyard as always. When he heard Amanda's voice, he walked inside, his steps slow and cautious. He could feel the tension in the air. He saw Amanda's mother standing in the center of the room, her eyes fixed on him like a hawk. Abby's heart pounded. He didn't know why, but something about the woman frightened him. Come here, boy, she said in a voice that was calm, yet cold. Abby stepped forward. Amanda's mother stared at him for a long moment. Then, without warning, she raised her hand. The air seemed to grow heavy, as if the room was holding its breath. Abby tried to step back, but his feet wouldn't move. He felt a strange sensation wash all over him, a tingling that started in his chest and spread to his arms and legs. And then everything changed. Abby wasn't standing anymore. He was on all fours. His skin itched and stretched. His hands were hands again. There were hoofs. His voice wasn't a voice, it was a bleat. Amanda's mother had turned him into a goat. Yay! Amanda gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. She looked at her mother, her eyes wide with shock. Mama, what have you done? Her mother didn't answer. She simply turned and walked out of the house, leaving Amanda staring at the small brown goat that had once been Abby. The room was silent, save for the soft sound of Abby's frightened bleating. Meh! Meh! Amanda stood trembling, her mind racing. She couldn't believe what she had just witnessed. Abby, her stepson, being turned into a goat right before her eyes. The boy she had tormented and scolded every day was now a small helpless animal bleating softly at her feet. Amanda felt the weight of her ashes crushing down on her. She hadn't liked Abby from the moment she moved into the house, but she never imagined anything like this could happen. Boom, boom, boom. A knock came at the door. Amanda's heart leapt in her chest. She froze, her breath caught in her throat. Who could it be at this time? She didn't have time to think it through. In a panic, she quickly scooped up the goat and bundled it into the kitchen. She shoved it behind the door, praying it wouldn't make a sound, and then ran to the door to see who was there. She opened it to find her husband standing by the doorstep. He looked tired as usual, his shoulders drooping from a long day of work. He stepped inside and looked at Amanda closely. Are you all right? He asked, noticing her pale face and trembling hands. Amanda forced a smile, though it felt more like a grimace. I am fine, she said quickly. It's just been a long day. Her husband raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. He started to walk further into the house where he heard it, a faint bleating sound coming from the kitchen. He stopped in his tracks, turned to Amanda and asked, What was that? Amanda felt her throat tightened. The sound was unmistakable. Her mind scrambled for an explanation. It's a goat, she stammered. My mother brought me a goat to take care of. She thought we might need one around the house. Her husband frowned, his face a mix of confusion and doubt. Your mother brought a goat? Why would she do that? I don't know, Amanda said, her voice hurried. She thought it might be useful for something. Maybe we can sell it or give it to someone. I don't know what she was thinking exactly. Her husband didn't look convinced, but he didn't press the matter. Instead, he let out a heavy sigh and shook his head. Well, I guess it's fine. Just make sure it doesn't wander around the house. Amanda nodded quickly, hoping he wouldn't ask any more questions. But then he started looking around the room, calling out, Abby, where are you? Amanda's stomach twisted into a knot. I haven't seen him today, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. I've been looking for him too, but he hasn't been around. Her husband's face darkened with concern. That's strange. He's always home when I come back. Did you check the backyard? I did, Amanda lied, but he's not there. Her husband rubbed his forehead, clearly worried. Maybe he went to a neighbor's house, he said, almost to himself. I will go ask around. No, wait, Amanda blurted out. She caught herself and quickly added, maybe he just went out to play. He will come back soon. There is no need to bother the neighbors. Her husband looked at her curiously. You seem nervous. Are you sure you are all right? I am fine, Amanda said again, this time more firmly. I have had a rough day, that's all. Her husband nodded slowly, though it was clear he wasn't completely convinced. He turned and went to wash up, leaving Amanda standing in the living room, her heart pounding. She could still hear the faint bleating coming from the kitchen, and she knew she needed to find a solution, and fast. In the kitchen, the goat that had once been Abby was quiet for the moment. Amanda crept to the door and peeped inside. The small animal stood there looking at her with wide, innocent eyes. Amanda's hands clenched into fists. How had it come to this? She had complained about Abby to her mother, but she never meant for something like this to happen. She didn't even know if she could reverse it. And what if her husband finds out? As the evening wore on, Amanda tried to keep her husband distracted. She served him his favorite meal, kept the conversation light, and even laughed at his jokes, something she hadn't done in years. But every now and then, her husband would pause, look around and say, I wonder where that boy had gone. I am sure he will be back soon, Amanda would reply, her voice tight and strained. But inside, she knew the truth. Abby wasn't coming back, not as long as he remained a goat. The night dragged on and Amanda's nerves were fraying. She kept glancing at the kitchen door, afraid that the goat might make more noise or somehow escape. She thought about her mother's words, her sharp voice ordering her to call Abby into the room. She thought about the flash of power, the way Abby had changed in an instant. Amanda felt trapped, caught in a web of her own making. She didn't want to be found out. She didn't want her husband to know what she had allowed to happen, but she also didn't know how to face it. As the clock ticked towards midnight, Amanda's husband finally went to bed. He had stopped calling for Abby, though his worry still showed in his furrowed brows. Amanda stayed up, sitting in the living room with her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She stared at the kitchen door, her mind spinning with plans and excuses. What would she do next? How could she make this thing go away? And most of all, what would happen if Abby's father ever discovers the truth? This and many more were going on in her mind. The next morning, Amanda's husband was already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed. He hadn't slept well because his mind had been plagued all night with questions. Where is this boy? Where has he gone to? Why would he just disappear like his mother without a word? Amanda stayed beside him, pretending to be asleep, though her mind was racing just as much. She dreaded what would happen if her husband learns the truth. She stayed silent, hoping he might let the matter go, but his deep sigh told her that would never happen. By the time she finally stood up, her husband was outside already. She peeped through the window and saw him talking to the neighbors. He asked if anyone has seen AB, if he had been playing outside or perhaps run off to visit a friend. Every neighbor shook their head. No one has seen AB since the day before. Amanda's heart dropped further as she watched her husband become more and more upset. She knew what he would do next. She had to stop him. Rushing outside, she approached him with a trembling voice. Maybe he just wandered off somewhere, she said. He will come back. We don't need to involve the police. Her husband frowned, clearly confused. Amanda. That boy had never gone out this way. He had never disappeared like this. Something must have happened. We need to report it. No, Amanda cried, her voice rising in panic. No, it's not necessary. He will be back. I am sure of it. Her husband looked at her closely, his eyes narrowing. Why are you so afraid of the police? He asked. Is there something you are not telling me? Amanda swallowed hard, shaking her head quickly. Nothing at all. I don't want us to get the police involved because it's not necessary, that's all. But her husband wouldn't listen. He turned and left immediately, heading towards the police station, leaving Amanda standing alone in the yard. Her legs felt weak, and she sank down onto the steps, burying her face in her hands. Tears slipped down her cheeks as guilt and fear took hold. What am I supposed to do now? I am so trapped, she lamented. She pulled out her phone and tried to call her mother, at least for them to figure out what to do. But no matter how many times she dialed, the call wouldn't go through. It was as if her mother had vanished, leaving Amanda to deal with the mess alone. Her husband returned with 2 police officers who began knocking on doors and questioning neighbors. Amanda stayed in the house, peeping out nervously. She could hear them asking if anyone had seen the boy, describing his age, his height, the clothes he was wearing the last time he was seen, and each person shook their head because no one had seen AB. No one knew where he had gone exactly. Finally, one of the officers approached Amanda. She tried to keep her breathing in check as the officer asked, Madam, when was the last time you saw AB? Amanda hesitated. It was yesterday morning. He went outside to play and I haven't seen him since then. The officer nodded, writing something down in his notebook. And you have no idea where he might have gone? Any friend he might have visited? Family members he might have gone to see? No, Amanda whispered, her hands trembling. He doesn't have anyone else. The officer studied her for a moment longer, then thanked her and moved on to the next house. Amanda closed the door and leaned against it, feeling the walls of her life closing in around her. She felt sick. This couldn't go on much longer. She had to find a way to make it stop. After the police left the compound, Amanda sat down staring at her trembling hands. She felt cold, as if the weight of her lies had frozen her from the inside out. She couldn't keep the secret forever. She just had to tell someone. She had to tell her husband. But how would he react? What if he doesn't believe her? This and many more were her fear. Her husband came into the house, his face dark with worry. The police will keep looking, he said. They will let us know if they find anything. Amanda responded with a nod, her throat tight. She couldn't meet his eyes, and for a long moment they both sat in silence until she couldn't hold it anymore. There is something I have to tell you, she said quietly. Her husband turned to her, his brows furrowed. What is it? Amanda took a deep breath, her hands twisted. It's about AB. AB? What about him? Her husband asked, his voice rising slightly. I what happened to him, Amanda whispered. I saw him and I saw how it happened. Her husband's eyes widened and he leaned closer. What are you talking about? What happened? Amanda felt the tears welled up again, but she forced herself to keep talking. My mother, she turned him into a goat. Her husband stared at her, his mouth falling open. What did you just say? She turned him into a goat, Amanda repeated, her voice cracking. It wasn't me. I didn't know she would do it. I didn't want this to happen, but she did it, I swear. I don't have anything to do with this, believe me. Her husband stood up, pacing the room. Are you out of your mind? You expect me to believe that your mother turned a child into a goat? That's the truth, Amanda cried. I saw it with my own eyes. I tried to stop her, but it was just too late. He turned to her, his face a mix of disbelief and anger. Amanda, if you are lying to me, stop it. I am not lying, she shouted, her tears streaming down. You have to believe me. I didn't do this. I don't want this. I didn't know what she was going to do. I didn't know what to do. Her husband stared at her for what felt like an eternity. Then he turned away, shaking his head. This is madness, he muttered. You are not making any sense. Your words are not connecting. How can you say something like this? Amanda covered her face with her hands, sobbing quietly. She had done what she thought was right. She had told the truth. But now, as she heard her husband's angry footsteps leaving the room, she wasn't sure if she had just made everything worse. Amanda felt trapped, her chest tight with guilt and fear. After telling her husband the truth, he had stormed out, leaving her alone with her thoughts in the living room. She knew he didn't believe her. Of course, who would believe something so impossible? But the truth was staring at her, bleating softly in the kitchen. She had no choice now. She had to show him. With trembling hands, she picked up the small goat. It squirmed slightly, but then settled down as she cradled it against her chest. The boy, Reby, was still in there. She could feel it, though she couldn't explain how. Her heart ached as she walked back to the bedroom where her husband was sitting on the bed, his head in his hands. He looked up as she entered, his face hard with anger and confusion. What's going on, Amanda? He demanded. I have had enough of this madness. Without a word, Amanda set the goat down on the floor in front of him. He stood there, his small body trembling, looking up at her husband with wide, frightened eyes. He stared at it for a moment, then at Amanda, his face twisting in frustration. Why are you showing me this? It is just a goat. Amanda took a deep breath. No, it is not just a goat, she said softly. This is Reby. This is our son. I lied to you initially. I said my mother brought me this goat, but that is not the entire truth. This is Reby. She turned him into this. She said he was the reason for our troubles, the reason I couldn't have children. I tried to stop her, but I couldn't. And now, I don't know how to face it. Her husband's face turned red with anger. You expect me to believe that? That my son, my own child, was turned into a goat? This is insane. The goat let out a soft bleat and lowered its head onto her husband's lap. Amanda's husband froze, looking down at the small creature. There was something in his eyes, something that reminded him of Abby, the boy who used to smile shyly when he bought him small gifts, the boy who always tried to please everyone, even when they didn't deserve it. His tough expression crumbled, and before Amanda could say another word, tears rolled down his face. "No," he whispered. "This can't be real." But it was real. The more he looked at the goats, the more he saw Abby. Amanda's husband picked it up carefully, holding it as if it were still a baby he had raised. "We are going to face this," he said firmly. His voice was steady, but his hands were trembling. He turned to Amanda, his eyes wet and full of fury. "You and I are going to your mother's house right now. She did this, so she can undo it." Amanda nodded quickly, afraid to say anything that might upset him further. She grabbed the bag and the two of them left the house, carrying the goats between them. They traveled to Amanda's mother's village in heavy silence. The only sound that was heard was the occasional bleating of the goats. Amanda's heart was pounding as they approached her mother's hut. She had no idea what her husband would do once they got in there. When they arrived, Amanda's mother stepped out, looking startled to see them. Her sharp eyes darted to the goats and then to her daughter's pale face. She knew right away why they had come. Before Amanda could speak, her husband set the goats down on the ground, pointed to it and shouted, "Change him back and do it right now." Her mother frowned. "What are you talking about?" "You know exactly what I mean," he growled, his voice echoing through the quiet village. "You turned my son into this animal. Change him back, or I promise I will make sure you will regret it." The older woman looked at Amanda, her expression unreadable. Amanda pleaded, her voice breaking. "Mama, please, you have to face this. You have to bring him back." For the first time, her mother seemed uneasy. She folded her arms and tried to stand firm, but Amanda could see the fear in her eyes. "I was only trying to help you," she said quietly. "I thought it was the best for you." "No," her husband shouted. "It was not for the best. It was cruel and wrong. And if you don't face it right now, I will make sure everyone knows what you have done." Amanda's mother hesitated for a long period. Then her shoulders slumped. "Fine," she muttered. "I will do it. But you have to promise me you will keep quiet about this." "I will promise nothing," Amanda's husband snapped. "Just change my son back." Her mother took a deep breath, then reached into her pockets and pulled out a small pouch. She sprinkled some powder over the goats and muttered a few strange words under her breath. The air around them seemed to shift. The goat trembled, and then, slowly, its body began to change. Foam melted away, limbs straightened, and before their eyes, Abby was back. He sat on the ground, blinking in confusion, looking up at them as if he had just woken up from a bad dream. "Papa," he whispered. Amanda's husband dropped to his knees, pulling the boy into a tight embrace. "Abby," he cried. "Oh, my son, I am so sorry. I am so sorry for everything." Abby clung to his father, confused but relieved. Amanda watched them, tears streaming down her face. But when her husband stood and turned to her, his face was no longer kind. "You were to be blamed as much as your mother is," he said coldly. "I trusted you to look after my son, and you let this happen. I want you out of my house. I don't want to ever see you again." Amanda's heart broke as she nodded. She knew arguing would be baseless. Her husband turned to her mother, his voice sharp as a steel. "And as for you, I am reporting you to the appropriate authorities. You will pay for what you have done." He shouted to attract neighbors. Amanda's mother protested, but it was of no use. The villagers were around, whispering how they've always suspected her to be a witch. Few minutes later, the police arrived to take Amanda's mother away, but something mysterious happened. Right before everyone's eyes, Amanda's mother turned into a goat and bleated away. The villagers stood frozen, including the police officers with dropped jaws and hands on their heads. Amanda stood watching as the life she had never known unraveled. She felt an ache in her chest, knowing she had lost everything: her husband, her home, and the small shred of trust she had once had. In the end, Amanda's husband returned home with Reby. The boy was saved now, though he would carry the memory of what had happened for the rest of his life. Over time, their home grew warmer, their days brighter. They found happiness in the simple things: shared meals, quiet evenings, and the love that had been buried under years of pain. Amanda was never seen in the village again. Some said she moved far away, while others whispered that she couldn't bear to show her face after what had happened. As for Reby and his father, they finally found the peace they had been searching for. Their bond stronger than ever. Together, they began a new chapter, leaving the shadows of the past behind them. Hey, African Tales by Kama Tribe, how are you all doing? For me, I am doing just fine. Please like the story if you have not done so, and subscribe to this channel if you are not part of us. And you can as well comment in the comment section, as I will be responding to everyone. If you love what Kama is doing on this channel and you wish to support me, kindly use the link on my bio or on the description of this video to buy me coffee. You can as well buy me a super thanks. Until I bring the next story your way, it is a goodbye from here, and God bless you.